The judicial committee, that we call the Committee for the Rights of the Individual, I think is the heart of the school. It's what is the most sacred thing in our school, because we feel that that's what separates us from chaos.
Well, we have the law book that I talked about, and so a lot of the students at our school are really pretty knowledgeable about what the basic rules of the school are. So if they feel that another student has broken one of the rules of the school, then they can go ahead and fill out a complaint form. It's a piece of paper, and they basically write what happened, who was involved, when it happened, where it happened, things like that. What happens then is that those complaints are reviewed by a judicial committee.
That's judicial committee is our structure that you know, when somebody has a complaint about somebody else breaking the rules or something like that, the judicial committee is the group that investigates.
The judicial committee is a small group of students, and usually one or two staff members, and they basically review all the complaints that have been written. So maybe on one particular day there will only be one complaint that they have to review. Some days they have to review 8 complaints. It just depends on how things are going at the school.
That's where a lot of the real serious work of the school happens, you know, in dealing with problems and that kind of thing.
Yeah. The judicial committee, they read the complaint, they review it, they gather all of the people who have some knowledge about the complaint, either the people who are directly involved, or there may be witnesses to the complaint. There might be people who just were around that day and they could say something about what happened.
The complaint comes up and we look at it and go, okay, this person wrote a complaint, he wrote it against this person and this person, and this person and this person and this person were all witnesses, you know, and so it's okay, we need to get these people. And so the little kids like to go and get the people.
Yeah. So the judicial committee gathers all of that evidence, and then they basically vote on whether or not the person broke a rule at the school or not. It may be that the committee feels that no rule was broken, and so that's when the complaint stops. But if they vote, if their vote is that a student did break a rule of the school, then the committee will continue the complaint further, and they'll decide what an appropriate consequence will be.
Normally, when we go to the judicial committee, they investigate, they talk to all the people that were there, they write a report, you know, based on what they heard from all of the people. They decide if there was a rule that was broken. They vote on, you know, what rule that is. They ask the person, you know, are you guilty or not guilty? And almost always they say guilty, and they put, you know, they come over and they sign their name, you know. But they can say not guilty. And if they say not guilty, then there's a trial. You know, and we pick 6, you know, the chairman picks 6 kids that, you know, don't know anything about it, and they, you know, they're the jury. And then, and the chairman is the judge, you know, who, you know, they don't make the decision. They just, you know, make sure that the rules are followed. The JC chooses someone to do the prosecution. The kid chooses someone to do their defense. And usually they try to get a good staff member to do their defense for them.
I think at our school and at most Sudbury schools, I think the consequences that those committees decide on are pretty fair. It's not like a student would leave a mess and they would be suspended from the school. It's more like they leave a mess, and so they have to go and clean up where the mess was. If it was in the art room, they have to go clean up the art room. Or maybe if it's a little bit more severe, maybe the committee decides that they can't go into the art room for some period of time, but that's their consequence.
Generally, the punishments make sense, and they really do seem like a consequence to your action. And usually, if you feel that you shouldn't have consequences to your action because there was nothing wrong with it, then you'll appeal.
The school meeting is the highest authority. Once your appeal goes to the school meeting, if it's accepted, then that's it. But that's what's decided, and if not, then nothing you can do about it. The school meeting made a decision. And sometimes the people were found not guilty the second time around, but mostly it usually comes out the same after taking all the evidence into account. Usually comes out the same decision.
Generally, the judicial committee makes good decisions that people agree with, or at least don't disagree with, even if they don't like the decision very much.
Kids and most of the staff at the school, on one hand, treat it very seriously, but on the other hand, are having fun at the same time, you know, and that everybody keeps it in perspective, you know, and that what we're talking about is not a horrible crime here. We're talking about that they ran in the hall, you know, and yeah, you ran in the hall, you know, and it's like, you know, all those in favor of charging him with 200.04, you know, and they all raise their hands, you know, you've been charged with 200.04, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty, you know, and they say guilty, you know, and they sign, you know, it's like, okay, you know, and they discuss a sentence, and it's like, okay, you know, your sentence is that, you know, tomorrow you may not go into that hallway. Okay, I understand, and they sign it, you know, and they go out, and so there's one sense of very seriousness about it, and at the same time, it's a kind of a game, you know, and it's a way of, I always think of it as a way of coming back into balance with the community, you know, that you admit that you did something you shouldn't have done, you're given some token thing to perform that will bring you back into, you know, into the community, you know, and that once you've done it, I've done my sentence, it's, you know, it's over. I'm not a bad kid, I'm not a bad guy, I'm not a troublemaker, you know, I did something that was against the rules, I did my sentence, all done.